Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And today we're going to be talking about one of those things that quite often makes people cringe, makes them cover their ears, makes them go, ew. There's two things. One is sales. People go, oh, I don't want to talk about sales. No, I can't be a salesman. Ew. And the other is when we want to talk money, when we want to talk financial. And it's right because we need them both, right? But the biggest thing is we have to know financial. We have to know our companies. We have to do financial planning. And how many of us, and I'm raising my hand, don't really do it, whether it's personal or business. And so we're going to have so much fun talking with my guest today. And we've chatted for like half hour before we ever even started this. So I know we're really going to have a good time talking about financial planning and things like that. So please join me in welcoming Christina Sjahli. I'm going to say your name wrong. Christina Sjahli to the program today. Welcome, Christina.
Thank you for having me, Deb. Appreciate it.
Great. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we will jump into this. So Christina Sjahli is an on-demand chief financial officer with 20 plus years of experience in finance. She started her career as a consultant and auditor with Ernst Young in Jakarta, Indonesia, then eventually moved to PwC in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and KPMG in Toronto, Canada. Over the years, as a finance leader with experience in consulting and auditing, she knows there are stories inside business financial numbers that many small businesses don't know how to untangle. There is more to business finance than simple bookkeeping, and that's why her consulting business focuses on partnering with mission-driven women entrepreneurs to level up their financial knowledge beyond bookkeeping. So again, Christina, welcome.
Thank you, Deb.
Well, I always like to go back just a little bit and find out how it is that you got to where you are today and discovered that this is your passion in life.
Well, it's all started with burnout in the corporate world. That's how it started because as you move up in the corporate ladder, as you know, as a woman, the demand is just become bigger and bigger. So before I decided to leave, actually, I already started feeling like, you know what, like I travel a lot. Like in a month, I probably stay home like 1 week. Ooh. And then I have a young child, right? And then eventually my company, which was located in Toronto, Canada, they want to move to Miami.
Oh, wow. That's a big change.
Weather-wise, I would welcome the weather, the warm weather over there. But, like I really don't want to move from Toronto and then move my family from Canada, right? So the demand was, okay, I either gonna travel back and forth and then only see my family like once a week, or I leave. And then I started networking, and I started realizing when I talked to a lot of women entrepreneurs, they are so passionate about the mission, the social impact that they want to make in this world. But I realized they also feel guilty when their business is making profit. Right. They don't know how to balance between the impact that they want to make and the profitability. So I realized that financial knowledge, we as women are not there yet, right? And then I think we're going to talk about this a little bit more later on. So that's when I said, you know what? I need to help other women. We need to empower each other. Not only empower that, we can do it together, but also giving the tools and the knowledge so we know how to balance between the mission and the profit. Because business without profit is not a business. It's a hobby.
Right.
So that's how I get started, Deb.
I love it. And at least from my own perspective, you're so right. Yes, my business makes money. That's great. It could definitely make more. And I think one of the first things that many women have a problem with is determining what they're going to sell whatever it is for. I think we feel guilty. Are we really worth $50 an hour? And the guy goes, 100 bucks an hour. And part of that is, I think we want to please people, and we want to be helpful. And that's not a negative, but we don't charge what we're worth. And I think that is one of the things that so many women, and especially when we're just starting out and we're thinking, oh, I'm new to this, I can't charge a lot. I might have 2 advanced degrees or experience, that's huge, but I really shouldn't charge very much. So, you work with a lot of different people. So what do you tell somebody who is really undervaluing themselves?
Well, one of the first thing that I always do with anybody that I work with, it's pricing, right? The way people price at the very beginning, it's not accounting for all the expenses that they need to cover their business.
Right.
The right way to price is actually price for the future. And believe it or not, what I notice is that when you are a product-based business, you are actually become more careful in having the right formula for your pricing in comparison to the service. Again, because when you are a service business provider, you are basically tying that service to your worth. Right? Instead of looking at, okay, what are my expenses? How many hours are I going to spend in a project, right? There is a formula there. What are all the business expenses, including if you have a coach, if you have to do marketing, if you have a virtual assistant, there's a formula that you have to go through one by one to determine at the very beginning, what is your hourly rate? You don't have to charge hourly.
Right.
Just know that you don't have to charge hourly,
right. It
but
could be
you
per project or whatever.
Yes, you need to be able to monitor, like how many hours, what are the expenses, the overhead expenses that you have within your business, so you can come up with the right package for your clients.
Right.
It's one of the tools that I provide, and then it has to be done correctly. And then I know there's so many different formula out there. Sometimes you're saying don't charge too high, right? At the very beginning.
Right. Oh my gosh. People will avoid me if I charge too much.
Exactly. But you know what though? Like if you going back and thinking, if I don't have the right pricing, how am I going to continue creating the impact that I want in this world? Think about it that way. Because again, like I said, no profit, it's only a hobby. And then one of the critical point in having a profit is to set your pricing correctly.
Right. It's funny. I had a discussion. This was actually when I was back in Colorado. So it's been a while ago, but I'm a public speaker. And so I give presentations and there is a fee associated with that. Now granted, there are times where I speak for free. I mean, we all have things like that, especially if you're a public speaker. But, I was telling this organization who wanted me to come in and talk about LinkedIn. Okay, here's what I do. I said, and the fee I charge is, and I got dead silence. And they went, you charge? And I said, yes, this is what I do for my business. Well, we thought you didn't charge because you love what you do. And I said, well, let's hope that we all do what we love to do.
Exactly.
But I can't pay my mortgage with, gee, I love to do that. And they still weren't getting it. And I said, it's just, no, I have to charge in order to do that. And they really were trying to guilt me into it. And I finally, and then of course what happened was I got annoyed. And I said, no, I'm not going to devalue myself by agreeing to speak to you for free. Now, that's not what I said to them, but they really did just assume that because I loved what I was doing, I would do it for free. No.
Yeah. And then a lot of business owners, especially at the very beginning, do struggle with this, right? So,
and we do friends and family discounts and all sorts of things to try and get business to come in the door.
Yes. But if you want, like at the end of the day, like at the very beginning, right? Your pricing needs to be right.
Right.
And then let's say that you struggle at the very beginning to charge a high price. You need to monitor your hours that you spend in your project very carefully, and all the expenses that you incur in order to get your business running.
Right.
Because I believe when you are hit with the reality and facts, and then this is where you cannot cringe. You have to look at your financial number. When you look at the numbers and the reality and the facts, because numbers are facts. That's the thing. Like you don't play around with it. When you look at the facts, honestly,
your phone bill
you.
is X number of dollars.
Yes. it hits you like a brick of, I don't know, like so hard. And then you realize I'm not really making money. And then it will change the way you think. Again, though, like I completely understand as well that some people have, we talk about money mindset. I don't deal with the mindset, right? I'm more a process person, and then I'm more a fact data driven. And then I understand there are so many background out there that saying, money mindset. But at the end of the day, what I believe is this: once you get rid of your money mindset, if you don't increase your financial knowledge as a women-owned business, you will not be able to grow your business. You're going to be able to grow your business to a certain level, but you are not going to get where you are for the long term, right? If you want to have a business that lasts for a long term and then a business that fuel the life that you want to live, you need to have the financial knowledge. You need to have the financial process. Getting rid of your money mindset block is not going to help you in the long run. Alone. I'm saying alone, right? You have that is the first step. Bookkeeping is the first step. But after that, you need knowledge and you need process.
Right. It's interesting because as you were talking about this, I was thinking, especially for women who have a home-based business, which now is an awful lot of people. But, for the most part, when we start out, in many cases, we do have a home-based business. So first, how many of us are going, well, it's okay. My husband is the breadwinner. And I'll be honest, you know what? I am very lucky that my husband has a very good job. That's where our insurance is. I mean, all sorts of things like that. But, I could certainly price things more. And then, of course, we have the other thing that falls to every home-based business where we don't count expenses like how much is your mortgage? How much is your electric? All those various things that are personal expenses, we should probably be figuring into our business expenses too.
Oh, absolutely. Because we're talking a little bit about tax, right? Like, I don't know what is, I believe US and Canada are the same. There is home office expenses that you can deduct, right? That absolutely needs to be included in your pricing. That is part of your overhead costs. Every single subscription, every single coaching that you receive and pay, that is part of growing your business. And that has to be included in your pricing. Again, like I said, there is a formula where it's going to help you to determine what is your hourly rate, including all of your overhead costs. Right? Then you are going to start from there and basically saying, this is the number of hours that I'm going to do a project, and this is how much I'm going to charge. It's when you are not profitable, the way I see it, there are two things. Your pricing is not right. That's one thing. You are offering too many products where you don't understand what are the profitability of each product. So you are not focusing on the right product because you basically, like scatter your bandwidth.
Because you want to make money. So you figure, well, the more I offer, the more I'll get. Well, it doesn't
Exactly.
work that way.
Because you focus on your revenue, right? And then the third thing is actually you don't have cash flow management. Because when you don't have cash flow management, you really don't understand like how much it's costing me each month.
Right.
A lot of people, if you hear this terms called cash burn rate, right? A lot of people don't understand what is their cash burn rate. Cash burn rate is actually your fixed costs. If you are working in the at home, right? Your overhead, your mortgage, your electricity, your phone, your internet, those are your fixed costs.
Right.
Right? You have to include that. That is, you need to understand at the very minimum what is your cash burn rate each month.
Right.
This is where, you know, at the very beginning, if you don't have a bookkeeper, you only have a software, you really need to look at your bookkeeping software. You need to look at your profit and loss and really understand it. It's a different ball game as your business are growing because you need more than bookkeeping.
Right. Right. Yeah, especially if you're going to have to start dealing with payroll and all of those various things. Because as the business owner, you have better things to do. You know, you should be focusing on selling your products and services, you know, and hopefully eventually, you know, you might have sales team, you know, all those various things, but you really shouldn't be doing your books. You know, and I tell people, you know, it's, I don't, now I do my own books, but I outsource like my website maintenance. Because I'm going to break it. And then it's going to cost me even more to have somebody fix it. But my bookkeeping really is fairly simple. But my accountant's very happy with how I do it. So I must be doing it right. But it is interesting to look through, especially at the costs, as you said, that happen every single month. Those, and many of those are those fun little things that we sign up for. And we don't even think of it as, you know, subscriptions or annual renewals or all of those things. And we don't even really think about them because they just, you know, we don't pay them. You know, we don't sit down and write the check for it. It just goes and it sucks out of our bank account. And so, you know, we don't stop to think, okay, well, $5 here, $10 there, $20 there, every single month really adds up. You know, and do you need those things? And that is one of the things that I think so many people miss out on is, you know, do you really need, and when you signed up for it, you know, you know, we sign up for it and then we forget to cancel it. That's of course one of the biggies. You know, and or the auto renewals. Man, I've been hit with auto renewals that just annoy me because I'm not using that product or service and I forgot to go in and uncheck that box. Yeah, it's really funny. I have my credit card, my business credit card was stolen several weeks ago. Somebody got it. And, you know, and now I finally paid attention when they took out $500. It was really funny. They did like a $74 transaction and then $120. And I mean, I don't look at my account every day. So, you know, and then they did like $300. Now it was over the span of just 2 or 3 days that they did this. $500 even. That for some reason caught my attention, but by then it was over $1,000. And so I noticed that. I was like, wait a minute, where'd this money go? Luckily, my bank, you know, I've been a good customer, all those various things. And it was a known fraud. I mean, it was one of those things. So I had the money back within 12 hours. I mean, you know, and obviously new card and all of those things. But it's been interesting because even though I keep track of my books, I do all of those things, those auto renewals. Of course, now I'm getting the little notices because my card was declined. Well, it's the one that, you know, got thrown away. And so then it's, oh, I'll take the passive aggressive approach and just never renew it, you know, or, oh, okay, I really do need that. And then I go in. I mean, you know, I don't know why it has to be passive aggressive. I don't want to hurt, you know, whoever's feelings, who I'm just one of like a billion customers. But it really did, in some ways it made it kind of easy. It was like, oh, you know, I'll just kind of let that take care of itself.
Here's the interesting part, Deb. I don't know if you ever heard this statistic. There is the World Bank and the Organization of Economic Cooperation Development, OECD. They did a study a few years ago, okay, about financial knowledge. Believe it or not, women ranked lower
Mm-hmm.
than men in financial knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we also all know the financing gap in the US, and then we all heard
Mm-hmm.
this, right? Women only get 2% of the funding
Mm-hmm.
out there,
Right.
right? And then one thing that really struck me about this, and there was a study, it was done by a Scotiabank initiative for Canadian small businesses, especially women entrepreneurs, right? We know that in the US, women entrepreneurs, women-owned businesses grow by 21% over the last 10 years.
Wow.
In Canada, it's 30%.
Wow.
Okay?
So a lot of women-owned businesses.
Yes. But the survival rate and the growth rate of women small businesses are less.
Right.
Even though women are more inclined to basically start their own business, right? And then honestly, this study is talking about financial knowledge, closing the gap in financing through financial knowledge. If we as women do not educate ourselves, familiar ourselves with the term and concept of financing or finance terms, right? How are we going to help ourselves and close the gender gaps?
Right.
Really?
Right.
Like, I mean, we know that there is a systemic gap in financing, gender bias against women. We know that. But as women entrepreneurs, as women-owned businesses, we also have the responsibility to educate ourselves, to level up ourselves in financial knowledge. So things like cash flow management, things like cash flow projection, understanding the different type of financing out there, especially in this pandemic, right? There's so many financing being thrown out there for small businesses. If you don't try to level up and understanding all the terms and concept and what you need to prepare to get the best financing for yourself, we are not helping in closing the gender gap in financing.
Right. You know, and then it comes back to, and I hate to say this, a hobby. You know, we did it because it was fun, you know, and we enjoy it, you know, all these various things. And that's great. I mean, you know, like I said, we really should enjoy what we're doing.
Absolutely.
But, you know, we, in many cases, and, you know, I'm probably guilty of this too, don't take it nearly as seriously as if we were in, you know, working for someone, you know, working in a corporation. So, you know, we might say, no, I need a bigger salary when you're working at that company, or you negotiate, you know, better vacation or benefits or all those various things. But yeah, then when it's our own business, we're like, okay, I need just this much to get by.
It shouldn't be that way, because as women entrepreneurs, as if you want to make this a business, not a hobby, you need to understand you can get by with simple bookkeeping and then you know, doing your tax return, and then understand, oh, suddenly you have a profit at the end of the year when you have to submit your tax return.
How many people, the only time they do their P&L is when they pull it for their accountant?
Exactly, right? Like, I mean, I heard that so many times. But in this economy, we are already in recession right now. Like it or not, we are in recession. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know when is the second wave. I mean, US, the number of coronavirus right now is rising up in the US. In Canada, we are expecting a second wave in the fall, right? So if we have to lock down again, as small business owners, what are you going to do? If you do not know how much, it's not only about making cash inflow, but how are you going to manage your cash outflow? Right? And if you are going, a lot of small businesses, when this whole pandemic, this lockdown happened, they panic. When they panic, and then they're looking at their cash flow and realizing, I'm not going to last for another month or another 2 months, right? So what is the next thing that they're thinking? I need to borrow money. The government are giving
look at all that free money the government was offering.
Exactly, right? Like all the, you know, like if you do certain things, there's going to be forgiveness. It's all well and good. But at the end of the day, it's a Band-Aid. It's a bridge.
Right.
Think about this financing as a bridge.
Mhm.
If you don't know what you are going to do, once the bridge,
Right.
the other side of the bridge,
Mhm.
your business is not going to last.
Right.
Okay. You really need to take a look and understand where is the breakdown in my process? Why is it that I'm not doing well? Was I profitable?
Right.
Was my business have a cash flow positive at the end of each month, or it has been negative? And then
Right.
I am just using this loan from the government or the grant from the
Right.
government
As the
just to
Band-Aid.
cover to cover up the underlying issue.
Right.
This is where I really believe financial knowledge is so critical. It's not about having someone doing everything for you, okay, financial
Right.
service, but it's about you taking the responsibility and really understanding, what does my financial numbers telling me? What is this financial story telling?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It's combining your vision and mission and let your number reflect the true story of your business.
Right.
This is what financial knowledge is really mean. It's not complicated. I guarantee you, once you understand it, you can see the door open, and it's gonna give you a new vision, and you're gonna feel empowered,
Right.
and you're gonna feel more confidence.
Right. And we were talking before the program about, all the businesses that are suffering or have completely closed. And many of them really were month to month type of businesses. I mean, that's just the way they were. Restaurants and retail is a fairly good example of that.
Yep.
Small retail, but look at the ones that were immediately able to do something different. Restaurants, I think, were probably one of the best examples of that. Who was able to switch to takeout and delivery and really make that transition quickly. There've been some fairly major restaurants here in Atlanta who put drive-throughs in, and you never would have thought of them as having a drive-through. Now, obviously, it's a much different menu than going in, and even depending on what it is, but they were able to make those shifts and keep things going, and that is part of this whole thing with the pandemic is, were you able to shift? The companies that really did think, oh, I'm going to do something different, or I have a friend who does commercial cleaning, office cleaning. And he said, people came to him and said, we need you to offer these services. So it was the added things. And he said, we already do that. That's just the high level of service that we provide. But he realized he needed to actually advertise that and say, this is just something we've always been providing, but to be able to shift and make those transitions, a lot of people have obviously discovered that they can do what they're doing online, and which is difficult for many people in a lot of ways. But, it comes back to what you were saying. If the business was not stable, things like that before this happened, in many cases, what this did was the pandemic just sped it up. They might have been okay for a year or two and then gone under, as opposed to a couple months, but they didn't, I think. And I've seen that with people. They were like, well, we didn't know what to do. Well, how much money did you have coming in? Well,
Well, imagine that when they have to go to the bank and ask for money.
Right.
Borrowing out of panic, it's like a big mistake.
Right.
That's number one. Number two, not understanding why you need the money. That's number two.
Right.
And number three, because you are borrowing out of panic, you just accept all the terms and conditions.
You don't even pay attention.
You don't pay
when you're going to
attention.
have to pay back. What's your interest? I mean, all those various things.
Exactly. And then because of that, yes, you absolutely, you are going to survive. And then if you are in that situation when you are borrowing out of panic, my suggestion is really, you need to go back and really do a cash flow projection, because you really want to understand, okay, how much, why am I needing this loan at the beginning? Okay, it's a cash flow gap. Everybody has this cash flow gap, this cash flow bridge. But what is the real problem? If you have been pivoting your business and then that is why you need the money, right? Is that a short-term needs or is that a long-term needs? Because there are different type of loans. And if you are borrowing because it's for a short-term needs, but you are entering into an agreement that is a long-term loan agreement, that's going to hurt you. It's going to hurt you in the borrowing costs. It's going to hurt your cash flow. That's why, like, you really cannot borrow out of panic. You shouldn't. I don't want to say cannot, but you shouldn't borrow out of panic. And then if you are borrowing out of panic right now, go back and then look at your business, look at the process. A lot of people make a mistake thinking that finance is just finance. It's just numbers. But the thing is that every business decision that you are making, it has a financial impact. It can be a revenue impact. It can be expenses impact. Okay, but there is always financial impact. Finance is a bucket of all your decision making. If you want to make a strategic and smart business decision, you have no other way than really looking at and plan for your financial aspect of the business.
It's interesting. We talk about people borrowing, especially during the pandemic, because they were in panic mode. I also had a lot of people who borrowed because it was available. And I mean, I had one person that told me, he said, well, we were kind of discussing this, and he said, do you qualify? I said, oh, I guess so. And he said, well, you need to get the loan. I said, why? Well, it's there. You should get the loan. I said, but I don't need the loan. But you should get it. It's there. I said, but I don't need it. And of course I didn't apply for it because I didn't need it. And it was like, and it comes back, it's not free money. I mean, it wasn't just, hey, we're going to give you 10,000 or whatever. There were terms and things that were associated with that. So if I didn't need it, I wasn't going to take it. Now, I do know some people who applied for the loans and got them and very wisely banked it and said, it's there if we need it. And if they didn't need it, then they could immediately pay it back because they just basically, okay, we took 10, here's 10 back, and then whatever the interest would be. But yeah, just because it's available is a really bad reason to be borrowing.
Well, I would say that if just because it's available, then a long time ago, you should apply for a line of credit. That's what I would say. Because if you say that it's just because you need it for what? You need it for working capital? Or you need it because you want to grow your business? You need a new marketing channel? You need to create a new product? Like, there's got to be a reason. Just because you need it, and then this is just my personal opinion, and then I had discussion with a lot of my clients about this, and then when we review the long-term financial projection, and then because of the pandemic, at least you have to have a plan for the next 18 months. Again, things gonna change, right? Things are fluid, and when you are doing a projection, doesn't mean it's gonna be set in stone. You have to be flexible with that. But my point is that I don't feel right to take that money because other people may need it more than I do.
See, that was kind of me too. I'm like, but I don't need it. Why should I take it?
If I think that I have enough cash inflow, or because, like your spouse has a good job and then still bringing in money, then I rather give it to somebody who really needs it, in my personal opinion.
I think that's why here in the United States, people just really had problems with things like, very profitable businesses. Ruth Chris Steakhouse is the one that's coming to mind. borrowing millions of dollars. It's like, okay, no, but I think it was, they borrowed because it was available. And, the PR person in me was going, wasn't somebody standing there going, wait a minute, what's this going to look like? And I think that really was the case. And then, of course, we unfortunately had a lot of fraudulent cases. And we're hearing about a lot of those now where people borrowed large amounts. I mean, we're not going to hear about the $10,000, but they borrowed huge amounts and then used them just for their personal use. They bought the really fancy car, they did whatever. And again, it was like, okay, this is not free money. They're not just giving you this money to do whatever you want. It's to put back into your business.
And it's ethically not correct. I'm
Right.
sorry. Because, I'm going to give you an example. There is a business over in San Francisco. She is in a flower business, right? And I follow her on YouTube, and it really breaks my heart because she was trying to figure out her supply chain, right? When the PPP came out in the US, the first batch was gone. She applied, and then she didn't.
Because those places got millions.
She didn't get it, right? And then when the second batch came around, one of the things that she was trying to figure out why her application was not moved up to the top, right? She applied for the first one already.
Right.
The big banks are, I'm sorry, but you're not helping. There are two things, right? When you need money, as a borrower, we, the small business owner, we need to maintain our relationship with our bank. We need to diversify our financial knowledge about the different type of financing over there, right? You don't rely only with one bank. Right? But you have to build the relationship. You cannot just have a bank account over there and then never talk to your account manager, for example. Because when you build a relationship in business, and then we all know that, but we don't want to exercise this when you are dealing with your financial institution, right? You need to continue building that relationship. So when you need it, you can have it. Right? So one of her issues, she was saying that she never talked to the account manager. And then because of that.
See, I'm thinking that too. You can have an account manager.
Yeah. So she never talked to the account manager. So when she applied for the PPP, she started talking, but there was no relationship.
Right.
Financing is about trust, like, know, and trust. We all know that in business, and it applies exactly the same way in financing. Don't forget that. Right? But also in her case, if she has a good sales, for example, she already banked because she was she was trying to build relationship with her customers, right? So she has a lot of customer who likes her product, right? There are other source of financing that can help her. Like, for example, invoice factoring. A lot of small businesses don't understand what is invoice factoring. Right? And then this is where I said terms and concept of financial knowledge, going back to that, it's important. Do your homework. Don't just believe line of credit or business term loans are the best one for you, right? And then this is where we as women-owned businesses need to open up our mind and then say, what are other options out there? There is invoice factoring, there is crowdfunding, right? I know we understand about Indiegogo and Kickstarter, but those are donation crowdfunding. There are other different type of crowdfunding. I just interviewed somebody who is fundraised through equity crowdfunding. Okay. Just recently in April, when the pandemic hit, and she raised money successfully. Okay. Obviously, there are strategy that you need to put in place, right? You need to be able to have a community that believe in your product. But this is equity crowdfunding is basically you are not asking your friends and family, but you are giving chance to normal people like you and I to invest in a business that we believe in.
Right.
A business that if, I'm a big proponent of not using plastic, for example. I want to invest in that type of business. I believe in the founder. I believe in their mission. Equity crowdfunding, it's one way to raise money. There is also reward crowdfunding.
Right.
But again, whatever financing that you are choosing, going to the bank, doing crowdfunding, or doing invoice factoring, whatever it is, it's always going to go back. Why do you need it? Do you have a financial story that you need to share with the lenders, with the investors? Always.
Right. And it really does come back to, is it just that Band-Aid?
Exactly.
Pandemic or not, are you doing this just to get through the next 2 months? Are you doing it just to meet payroll? It's interesting. And a lot of that, I mean, the whole cash flow thing is always very interesting. Years ago, like long time ago, long time ago, I worked for a company, great company. What we did, we designed computer software, not me. I was the office manager part. I was not the software designer part, but our client were various entities in the federal government, primarily NASA and the Navy. So we designed computer software for them. It's very cool. I never understood exactly what they were doing, but I thought it was very cool. I mean, we designed part of the software that's on the Hubble telescope. But the federal government, the whole invoicing process with them was, and it was my responsibility. I mean, that was what I did. And I mean, you talk about somebody that has to have every T crossed and I dotted. Because they're dealing with bazillions of dollars. And of course, the problem is they don't tell you if the invoice was rejected. It's just, and so you develop, you usually have a procurement person that you're dealing with. So you want to, as you said, develop a relationship. So you really want to develop a relationship with them. And, and then the other problem with, especially dealing with an entity that large, their terms are 120 days. Doesn't matter what you put on your invoice. They're not going to pay it for months. And you just have to get used to that, and so that's very difficult if you're a business, especially if you're a small business. But, that's obviously an extreme, but it happens with small businesses too. I mean, are you dealing with customers who are going to pay you right away? Or are they going to pay you in a month after you've nagged the living daylights out of them?
Yeah.
And do you have a good relationship with that person that you are sending those bills to? And that's where it's a little tricky, especially if you're dealing with a larger business, because the person who gets the bill may never ever see exactly what you're doing. So they really don't care about that part. They're just the controller, the procurement person, whatever you want to call them. And they're the people you really need to have a good relationship with. And I think people tend to forget that because, and sometimes it's tricky because, I might send my invoice to you, but then you pass it on to somebody else. The somebody else is who I need to be dealing with. Maybe you have to approve it, but I need to be talking to that person to say, okay, do you prefer to pay by check? I mean, do you want us to set up terms? Do you want to do bank transfers? All of those various things, or even what is the format that you need? I mean, I've had businesses that haven't paid invoices simply because they didn't like the format that I provided my invoice on. Really, and it's like, okay, and so that's where I think as business owners, we're like, oh my God. But that's where it really does help to hire somebody to be doing this. But so many times we let things go, and we don't pay attention to those and all of those. And it's, as you said, we have to be paying attention to that.
Well, absolutely. And then especially if it's going back at the very beginning of your business, you're okay to manage that, right? Because your business still at the early stage, right?
Right.
As you are growing, you have more clients, you have more products, you have more suppliers that you have to deal with. That, what you are just telling me, that is a classic example of cash flow management, right? You are invoicing your customers and then receive the money 120 days. What about your suppliers?
Oh yeah.
Are you
they want it within 10 days, right?
Exactly. Are you matching that? Right? So that is one trick. And then that's what we call trade credits, right? Because you're giving credits to your clients 120 days. You are basically literally giving them money to borrow from you. A lot of business owners don't realize that. And then your suppliers are giving you only 30 days if you're lucky.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Okay. If you're lucky, some of them want 15 days. What's going to happen if you think about it? Your money is not coming in 120 days, but you have to have a cash outflow.
There's a big gap in there.
15 days or 30 days. There is a big cash flow gap. And then a lot of business owners, especially in the consumer packaged goods, okay, CPG, that is a big issue. That's why I mentioned to you earlier that in our discussion about invoice factoring. That is where you as a women business owner or any business owner need to understand what are the financing available and why do you need it. Because that is a classic example of working capital where you only need to borrow for a short-term period of time, which is the gap between 120 days and the 30 days, which is 90 days. Right? You don't need it longer than that. And then when you are a new business owner, when you don't have a credit history, you cannot get a line of credit from the bank. This is where private lenders, which is you need to be very careful who are you dealing with, right? You need to get referrals. You need to understand what are they charging, what are their terms and conditions. Is that something that's going to penalize you? You know, like this is where understanding, going back to financial knowledge is so important. Like this is not a lot of people understand about invoice factoring. Really, not a lot. Like when they cannot get money from their bank, a line of credit, they just give up. They started using their credit cards. Or they are getting a loan from not a trustworthy lenders. And we know there are many out there, right? But if you equip yourself with the knowledge, you will limit that risk. Let's put it that way.
Right. You know, and as you said, develop those relationships. It's interesting, because one of the first things that I think of is, well, but I bank with one of the big gigantic banks. How on earth could I ever get, and they have an office down the street. I'm a minuscule part of their business, but there are still people that are there that I could go in and say, hey, I have an account here and I would like to have a business relationship. And of course, I'm old enough. I remember the days where all banks were small. You walked in and they said, hey, Deb, how are you doing today? You saw them in the post office. I mean, all these various things. But, you can still develop relationships with your bankers.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if not, you can choose a different bank, a credit unions, a smaller
credit union would
boutique,
be a great example of that.
Exactly. Credit union, boutique banks, right? Like I interview a CEO of a bank in New York, and then one of her vision or her mission is to basically have a good process where they always interact with the clients.
Wow.
It's not only when they come in and need money, but to have a constant communication with the client. So they always understand where the business situation. And then you know what? It's actually a good benefit for us business owners to maintain that because, if there is something not working well in our business, if you have that habit and explain the situation, you already start building a story for your business. So when you need it, you can go over there and say, hey, remember what I told you? So I need your help. How can I help you? But we are responsible to give that story. We are responsible to give that financial numbers. Without it, you won't get it.
Yeah. I still remember, and this happened several years ago. So we still are with the credit union we were with in Colorado. We love them. I mean, everything is done remotely. And so, and they have sister credit unions and, so all these various things. But, I follow them on Facebook. And they always pre-pandemic, they have events, they do all sorts of things. And so I'm always real big on I share it. It doesn't matter that we're here and they're there. This is, it's a great, great credit union.
Yeah.
And they're fairly good size, but they are just in Colorado. And so I still remember one year I got a Christmas card, a handwritten Christmas card from their communications person.
Yep.
Who said, we noticed, and I mean, clearly this was personal, because she said, we noticed how much you share our information on Facebook. Thank you so much.
Oh,
I know. I'm like, we will never leave them.
Exactly, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, that is the kind of relationship, because they're gonna have your back when you need them. Right. But again, we have to provide that, how should I say it? You have to provide that, showing them that you can be a responsible borrower. Right. Because character is one of the things that you need to show to any lenders, right? Especially in the situation.
Yeah. If your account routinely gets down to zero or really close to that, or you have, credit card, you're at your max on all those various things, that's not going to be for a good relationship. And so, I mean, you just have to be paying attention to this. And there are so many things that, we're not even talking about. Credit cards would be a big one.
Oh, yes.
And it is so tempting right now to be using your credit card. Okay, you can do that as long as you pay it off every month. And it's funny because I had that discussion with somebody because it was my debit card that got stolen. And he said, you really should use your credit card because there are more safety features with it. Now, I lucked out. Like I said, my bank had the money back in my account within 12 hours. It was $1,000, which to me is pretty,
it is money.
But it so probably would make sense if I were to put it on a credit card as opposed to the debit card. But as long as I'm paying it off every month, it really doesn't matter which one I use. But we've got to get out of that habit of carrying those balances and thinking about, are we doing this well? The whole big issue, and this is, something that we could probably talk about for an hour, of, especially here in the United States, places, because of the pandemic, not wanting cash. And there's a variety of reasons for it, and we're not going to go into that. But I had the discussion on Facebook with somebody. I said, I never use cash. I just, and I said, and now I really don't, because it does have cooties and blah. But, I always have it on me so that if I have to tip somebody or something like that, I can do that. But I said, I always use my credit card. And she said, oh, we just, we don't have the discipline, is in essence what she said. And I said, well, we use one of the cards where we get cash back when we pay it off every month. And she said, oh, that's really not a big deal. I said, sweetie, we got $6,000 last year. And she went, oh. and I said, I said, you just always go into, before putting that out in front of somebody, can we pay this off at the end of the month? If not, you go through the whole, do we need it? Should we pay for it differently? Yada, yada, yada. And I said, but that card gets paid off every single month so that then we get that cash back. And you might prefer airline. I don't know about airline, but I just bought a new camera for my, for doing this from credits on my credit card. And so there are different things that you might want to use your credit card for, but as long as you're paying it off every month, it's okay.
Yeah. And then, another thing is that, like, I want to brought up, because we are talking about credit card as well, right? One of the things that if you have a line of credit, or you can have a chance to use a line of credit, use that instead.
Yes.
Or, there is also, like, in the US, there are websites like Funding Circle and Fundura. Those are providing business loan, right?
Right.
But again, you need to be careful. Understanding why you need it, because it can be very expensive for your interest if you don't understand why you need it. Right? Like credit card, it's like, I know the situation right now, right? Like, it's hard. And if there is any other source of loan, actually, like, it's better to use the loan than credit card, because credit card can be like 18%, 20%.
Oh, at a minimum.
At a minimum, right? Like, it's really, really hard, and it's going to destroy your it's going to destroy your credit history.
Right.
Like your
Right.
credit, and then it makes it harder. It, one thing that a lot of businesses don't realize, when you are building your business, you are also building your credit history.
Mm-hmm.
You are also building your ability to borrow money later on. I know a lot of women-owned businesses are hesitant to borrow money to grow their business.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the reason is because not a lot of us understand how does financing works? How does loan works? What are the best loan for my business?
Right.
And then again, going back, why you need it, borrowing out of panic, right? And then what are the terms and condition of those loans? It's just so important. I cannot emphasize that enough, like how important it is for us to understand all of it.
Right. Well, of course, the big thing is, for many of us, when we start thinking about these things, our eyes cross, they glaze over, and we think, nah! And so that's where we need to work with someone like you. And I love it. On your website, you say, on-demand chief financial officer, and I love that, because we, in many cases, we don't need somebody full-time. If we need somebody full-time, that's a totally different situation, but we need a trusted resource. So tell us a little bit more about what you do and who you work with.
I work with mission-driven women entrepreneurs where they really want to know how to balance between their mission and profitability. So business with purpose, right? That's what I am really inspired towards, right? And then the way it works is that it's always start with the process. When I first go in, I always gonna work with them understanding about their business. Going back to that statement that every single business decision has a financial impact. So for me to become a CFO, a good CFO, is to understand your business and your long-term vision first. And then once that started, then, it's basically, once all the foundation are laid out, above and beyond the bookkeeping, I'm talking above and beyond. So you have your cash flow management, you have your cash flow projection. A CFO just comes in and basically sit down with you on a monthly basis and go through your cash flow projection and then understanding, are we on target? If we are not on target, why? Are we not using the right assumption in your sales conversion? Are we not predicting enough for our capacity in producing the product? Do we need to hire more people? If it's going to hire more people, what does that mean to our profitability, right? But in a mission-driven, profit is not the driver. It's what social impact that you really want to make, and then how to balance that, right? Like if your mission is to pay the living wage, which is above minimum wage, then that is always making sure what other expenses that you don't need to make, right? Because you want to focus on that. So it's a CFO is basically helping you to have a strategic planning for the next 3 to 5 years, and then monitor that on a monthly basis to make sure that you are on track.
I love it. I love it. Now, you are in Canada, but you also do business in the United States, correct?
Yes, that's because fortunately, I have both. I am a CPA, and then don't get me wrong, CPA is not a tax expert. Not all of us, right?
Somebody else deals with that
part. That is somebody else dealing, but I am licensed both in the US and Canada, and I can practice in both US and Canada. And because the pandemic, and then even before the pandemic, it's just like finance is finance. It's numbers. Cash flow projection, cash flow management are the same in every business. So I don't see any restriction whether I'm working with worldwide clients or just Canadian client. It's all the same.
Yeah. And now that, especially now that we're really embracing technology, I mean, it's a bonus to you.
And the interesting part, Deb, like mostly my clients are US based. That is the interesting part.
Well, you went to school down here. We were laughing before the program. I'm University of Colorado, Pac-12. She's University of Oregon.
Ducks.
Go Ducks. Okay, we'll say go Ducks. But yeah, I mean, it's funny because we are worldwide. Even if you're a brick and mortar place, places that have really been able to pivot during this time have discovered, oh my gosh, we can ship. We were visiting a friend of ours who owns a bookstore, and he has not been physically open for people to walk in since March. March 13th was the last day he was open. They're doing just fine because they're shipping.
Yeah.
Now he has it's a very niche market of what he does, but yeah, they're shipping. And he said, did he downsize? Yes. But and he said, he made that decision fairly early on, felt really bad about it, but had to do that. And that's the other thing, folks, there are some business decisions that we have to make that we, yes, they make you feel bad, but if it keeps your business open, you might, that might have to do it. And so, but yeah, I mean, he really is emphasizing the fact that he can deal worldwide with people.
Absolutely. I believe in that. And then I think the way we're going to run business is going to be different going forward.
It's going to be interesting. So we should talk again in like 6 to 12 months to see, because I think really things really are going to be very different with how people function and how they do business. So I look forward to doing that. But, until then, tell people how they find you and connect with you online.
Well, the easiest place that people can connect with me, it's my podcast. It's Her CEO Journey. If you type in Google, Her CEO Journey, you will find me over there. Christina Sjahli.
I love, and we didn't even talk about your podcast. So, it's great. I love that. Well, we really are, oh my gosh, out of time. So do you have any final thoughts for everyone?
I just want to say that always remember that finance is a tool to amplify your social impact. Just remember that when you're feeling that guilty as women-owned businesses or women entrepreneurs, think about that. Finance is a tool to amplify your social impact.
Wow. I love that. What a great way to leave the program. I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a fascinating discussion. Yes, we have, talking finance with Christina Sjahli. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.